This is the geek out for Twitter mining. If you guys could all open RStudio, so it looks like this. I think most of you at this point know how to do that. But if you have any trouble, let me know. Everyone got RStudio open? Cool. So go to File, New Project. Let's start out. We're just going to create a new project for this. And then hit New Directory, New Project, and then call it like Geek Out Twitter Mining. And then create that. There we got it. Cool. So just in case you don't know, creating a project lets you essentially keep everything that you're doing related to a certain subject in the same folder. It'll create that folder and then you'll save all your scripts there. It's a good way for keeping track of what you're doing so it's not scattered all over your computer. So first, we'll open a new script by doing File, New File, Script. And we'll save this as Twitter mining. So up here is where you do all your coding, all your scripting. It's the way you keep track of what you're doing. You can also code down here in the console, but I don't recommend it because you lose all that. So we'll code up here. Okay, so first we're going to download the data that we're going to be playing with today. And unfortunately, Twitter just recently changed their permission settings, so it takes a couple weeks for you to get approved as a developer to actually mine like data from Twitter itself. But luckily, there's some really good Twitter data out there, and it's useful to play with to understand how to actually, deal with text and the particular nuances of Twitter data, because it's actually pretty difficult to deal with. So go to an internet browser of your choice, and then type in tinyurl.com/geekout2018, and then download this file. If it lets you. Hopefully it does.
It was Geek Out 2018?
Yep. God, please work. Alright, there we go. Hopefully it worked for you guys. Tweets. Did everyone get it to download? Cool. So when you have it downloaded, move it from wherever it downloaded to the project file the project folder that you just created. Which, if you're on one of the school computers, should be in Documents. If you're not, it should be in your home directory, probably. So when you go back into RStudio, if you've done it right, then tweets.csv should show up over here in the Files pane. Did you get it?
I'm having Wi-Fi issues because I have to make a guest account and stuff.
What are we saving it?
What was it?
What are we saving it to?
The project folder, Twitter mining, whatever I call it, Geek Out Twitter mining. So a little background on where this data came from. So this data set is a set of 50,000-ish tweets that were handed over from Twitter to the US government. They are specifically tweets attributed to accounts that are connected to the Russian government.
Should I use this?
So these are specifically accounts that were used in the disinformation campaign undertaken before the 2016 election. Was everyone able to get it into their project folder and they see it over here? Cool. So now we're going to install a couple packages. Install.packages tidyverse is the first one. Tidy text is the second one. And lubridate is the third. So what packages are? They're just sets of custom code that someone, like a user, has made to make R easier to use or to do certain things. Base R is super finicky and not particularly fun to code in, but these packages make it a lot easier and they let you do certain things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. So when you've written these three things in, you can highlight all three of them and then click Run up here. And if you're on the school computer and a dialog box might pop up down here by the, like on the taskbar, if you just click it and click No, then it'll install normally. It'll also take longer than it did for me to demo tidyverse.
Okay, I just got the tweets fixed.
You got that over here?
No.
Move it into the project folder. It should be in downloads if you just copy it and then
Okay.
go into that folder that you made and paste it.
What's the name of that third package?
Lubridate, Lubridate. So tidyverse gives you a whole bunch of things, including cool visualizations and other quality of life improvements. Tidy text is specifically dealing with text mining, and then lubridate deals with date formats, which are super annoying to deal with in R. Was everyone able to install these successfully? It's just hanging.
So I just did tidyverse, so now I just trying to redo the second two.
Okay.
I'm not sure why.
Did it pop up the dialog box down here? Like down the bottom next to Chrome or R? When you install tidyverse, it'll pop up a thing that says yes or no. Just hit no.
No, I didn't see that.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Cool. Goes and read able to. Did you get the file in the directory? Oh, go into the download folder. Alright, did you copy it? And then, sorry, go back into the file. Okay. When they're done installing, you should see this arrow down here again. Everyone see that? Cool. Is it still going for you?
Yeah.
It does take a while.
I'm installing mine still in that.
Okay, we'll give it a sec.
I think because I also had like dependencies too.
Yeah.
Because I got paranoid, like every time I install something doesn't work. It's like,
Okay, while you're waiting for it to install, you can write up here. We have to load those packages that we just installed. So just write these 3 lines. Oops. Also make sure that it's not in quotes down here. When you install them, it has to be in quotes. When you load them with the library function, they should not be in quotes. And then you can highlight them and run that. You guys good back there?
Still going.
Still installing? Okay,
I think it's
cool. Yeah, that tidyverse is pretty big. Takes a while. Kristen, are you able to get it?
Mhm.
Cool.
okay.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, load the 3 packages like that. So every time you open RStudio, you have to do these if you want to use them. You only have to do this once. You only have to install them once, but you have to load them every time you open RStudio. After that, we'll load in the data. So to do that, we'll write this. So in case you don't know, tweets is the variable that we're using to store the data. This arrow sign is essentially the assignment operator. It's an equal sign in any other programming language that you might have used. Read_CSV is a function that reads CSVs and processes them for use in R. And then tweets.csv is the file that we're using. So you can run that. And you should see your tweets data over here. Everyone got that? So yeah, this read CSV function requires quotes around the file name. Good? Cool.
Of course, we're good.
Jules and Chris, you guys good? Good, no?
She's a little slow right now.
Oh yeah. This is the sort of size of a data file that you'll be dealing with if you ever mine Twitter yourself. I like this data set though because it's fun to look at how the Russians actually used Twitter accounts. Like we'll be going and I'll show you and like you can see the sort of like they were playing both sides. They had radical leftists and radical rightists Twitter accounts. It's cool.
So in the sidebar, it says 203,451. I'm just going to put substantiation.
Observations.
Observations.
Yeah, I think
16
double click it.
Yeah.
Pull up the little table one.
Yeah, if you want to check it out, you can click it and see. It's 203,000 rows and 16 columns.
Okay. Observations.
Yeah, so they call rows observations and columns variables in R. Good?
We're gonna try restarting.
Alright. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is get the timestamp column in a usable format. So if you click on tweets over here and check out the created at and created string, you can see that they're clearly dates, but R doesn't know these are dates yet until you actually put them into the format of a date. So it will only treat this as like a string of these characters, not as an actual date object, which is annoying, but it's how R processes this data. So going back to the script, we're going to take tweets, assign it to itself, and then do something to itself. So that this operator right here, you can read as then. So you take the data set, then we're going to do something to it. Okay, so takes the data set, then it mutates. So what mutate does is it creates a new column. That column's name is timestamp, and timestamp is equal to this function, year, month, day, underscore, hour, minute, second of created string. So that what this does is it makes a new column with a timestamp that is a date object. So we can use it in graphing. And then you can run that. Did that work? Yeah, so essentially what you're doing is this, you're making a new column for the tweets data frame. That's what like a table is called in R. And then you're overwriting that. So you're changing the data frame.
So YMD underscore HMS is a function?
Yes,
Yeah.
Is that a function that you created or that exists in other packages?
it exists in LuberDate.
So I imagine why it is year, month, day, hours, minutes, seconds.
Yep. It essentially processes the created string. It looks for year, month, day, hour, minute, seconds, and then it makes that into a date object rather than a string.
Are those functions written in R or in Python?
They're written in R. Yeah. I think. Actually, this may be a wrapper for Python stuff. I'm not sure actually. Is everyone able to do that? Jules is still struggling.
She's working now.
Okay, good. You are.
So weird. Okay, come.
I don't know what to do with that. Here, I'm going to try forcing. very annoying. Oh. This isn't actually reading it in as a data frame. There you are. Now you're able to do this. There you go.
Okay.
Okay, everyone good? Jules, did you guys work?
Yeah, I'm just gonna download my tweets CSV now.
That's fine. Okay, so if we want to visualize like when these tweets were written, we can build a histogram, or a bar graph, I guess, with time on the x-axis. So to do that, we're going to use ggplot, which is a function that builds really cool looking visualizations. We'll do ggplot tweets, comma AES, x equals timestamp, and then outside of the parentheses, plus geom histogram. So ggplot is the graph building function. It takes the dataset tweets. AES stands for aesthetic. It uses timestamp as the x-axis. And then geom histogram will automatically assign bins of a certain number of days, and then count the number of tweets that were given in each day, or that were submitted in each day. And make sure this is a plus and not this. ggplot takes a plus for some reason that I'm still not sure about. But if you run this, you'll see a histogram. And not surprisingly, most of the tweets were sent in the latter half of 2016, especially around the election.
It needs the
What's it say?
oh damn it. Let's see here. Do I have to run the whole thing?
No, you shouldn't. There you go. I have no idea.
What did you just do?
I just ran this whole thing again.
Oh.
Do you guys see this back there?
Oh, yeah.
You good? Chris, were you able to get this?
I was able to get this. He's still not able to load any of the packages.
They installed them.
What's it saying? Oh, okay. Run the install packages for today versus
We just did, yeah.
Did you click yes on the pop-up thing?
Install with the
Yeah, do 2 minutes of double true. That was the fix for the last time. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that should, I think that should. No. Oh, that's okay. I think it should be fine.
So what's this doing?
It's installing all the packages that those packages depend on. Because
So like my computer's just missing something or something?
I think that should work. It works. The same issue that showed up last week.
So you said
I usually do know installing from source. Okay. There we go. Now shut it on the libraries here. Cool. Yeah.
So what do you do?
Trevor.
yeah, because yours is showing up with 16 variables and I have 7.
Oh, because he hasn't run the mutate line yet.
Oh, okay.
It's still only in tables. Try running tables and volume. Okay, I'm sure you can run that mutate line. Okay, you're good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's fun stuff right here.
Oh yeah, debugging, best part of coding.
Just figuring out what's going on.
You good?
Okay.
This is working. I can't tell why.
Is there a way to open the packages if you just want to see them?
Yeah, they're saved into source folders that are somewhere in your computer, so you can actually open the code and see how they're built.
Do you know where you can find them?
No.
So do you have to open them like, from the terminal in your computer?
Yeah.
You can't open them.
Well,
Okay, usually when you're downloading the packages, it shows you what directory to do it in.
Yeah.
Oh.
Unless you cleared it out, then you can just mess around with your computer and try to look for it. But during the install phase, they try to tell you what to do.
Never mind. We have our studio. I thought I but it looks like we can find it.
anyways, yeah, there's a way to do it. Okay. Now let's dig into the actual data and start doing things with the text. So we're going to create a new data frame called tidy tweets, and then assign it to tweets, and then do this function called unnest tokens. So what unnest tokens does is it takes the text column. So in the tweets data frame, the text column is just the text of the tweet. It's like a couple sentences, 180 characters or whatever it is. So what we're gonna do is break those tweets down into each of their words, like into each word. So one row will equal one word instead of an entire tweet. So unnest underscore tokens in parentheses word text token equals tweets strip underscore URL equals true. So to break down what this is doing, unnest tokens is creating a new column called word. It's taking the text column from the tweets data frame and it's going to break it down into the words. Strip URL strips the URL. Any URLs that are in there, which is really useful for Twitter because people's tweets are full of URLs, and we don't care about that stuff. So if you run this, oops. That's fun. These work.
You're supposed to put pipe after it.
Put one.
Pipe.
This works for me.
Yeah, I just got the same thing.
You got the same thing.
And it's not loud.
Yeah. Okay.
2017 and 2002.
For Timmy stat.
Okay. To test this stuff, delete the tokens equals tweets and delete the strip URLs. So it's just word text. Word comma text. And you can see that your tidy tweets data frame is now enormous with 3,145,000 rows. If we want to view what that looks like, you can select that column by just writing this line, tidy text money sign word. So the money sign selects the column on the right. Not tidy text, tidy tweets. So you can see what it's breaking it down into. Oh yeah. Yeah, we'll deal with that. Yeah, there's a lot of URL junk in tweets. So when you see that, or when you get up, when you're able to see this stuff down here, then you're on the right track. So we're going to go back up to this and add a couple new things. So add another pipe. You can chain together as many as many lines as you want with a pipe. So we're going to do another line called filter, and then exclamation point means not. Okay, so break it down. It's filtering the rows so that the word column is not, that exclamation point means not, in stop words column word or money sign word. So the stop words is a data set that comes with tidy text that's full of things like the and like the words you don't want to actually see when you're counting. So if you run that, then you'll see that you got rid of like 1.5 million rows. So that's already better. 2 million is much easier to deal with than 3.5 million. we're going to add another line. That's another filter. To get rid of those URL junk. So we're going to get rid of the dumb things that Twitter likes to throw in. So again, this is filtering. The exclamation point says not. This C means combine. So you're building a list out of these 5 strings. So if you run that, you can see like you drop the number of rows by another 400,000. So already this is a lot better. Yeah. So if you want to see the count, like the total number of each word, what you can do is use the count function. So tidy tweets. So if you just run this, it's not going to assign, like you're not assigning this to anything, so it's just going to show up down the console. It's a way for you to test things out without actually building variables that you have to get rid of later. So as you might expect, from tweets, from Russian government linked accounts, the words with the highest use are Trump and Clinton.
So when you're adding the filter, can you just highlight the latest add-on, or do you have to highlight the whole group again when you run it?
When you run it, I mean, if you want to, you can just put your cursor in any line and click run.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it'll run that block, that whole block.
Yeah, well, this one's the latest filter line.
Do you have the pipes on each line?
Okay, hold on. Add the last type.
Yeah. Okay. So what I think we should do is build a graph comparing 2 different users and the frequency of their word use. So we're going to build a new table called frequency, and then assign it to what we're going to do over here. So the first line that we want above the count is we want group by user key. So user key is the Twitter handle, is the screen name. So what this group by line is doing is it's going to allow you to count by the user. So you get a count of each word that the user uses, that each user uses. And then add another pipe after that. And then what we're going to do is do a join. So what joins are is it allows you to combine 2 tables together. So in this case, what we're actually going to do is join the same table to itself, which sounds weird, but it's a way for us to get a column that is like the total number of times, the total number of words they use. So then you're able to take the number of times they use a certain word and divide it by the total number of words they use to get the frequency of a certain word that they use. So in this, we're going to do tidy tweets, pipe, This is inside the parentheses, by the way. Tidy tweets, pipe, group by, user key, another pipe, summarize, total equals in. So this summarize allows you to find the sum of all words that the user uses, that each user uses. So group by breaks down the data frame into groups based on the screen name. Summarize sums up every word that each user has used. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Just break it down again. We're building a new variable called frequency. We're taking the original data frame called tidy tweets. We're grouping it by the screen name. We're doing a count of each word that each user has used. And then we're building a new column that is the sum of the total words each user has used, of all words that each user has used. We're going to add one more line that is another mutate, so we're making a new column. We'll call it freak. And we'll do in divided by total. So in is the column that this line creates. So in is the number of times each word was used. And then total is the column that this line creates, which is the total number of words each user used. No, that's a little confusing. But essentially what you're doing is finding the percentage, like each word's percentage of the total number of words each user is.
Just takes me a while to actually write down.
Yeah.
Now I'm caught up.
Cool. Okay. You can run that group. If you're getting that error, I am too.
So my tweets are from 2002 to 2012.
Or from what?
2002 to 2012.
Interesting. That's fun.
I used the link you gave me.
I
I got an error.
Bless you. Apologies for the issues. I'm going to try something real quick. Hopefully this works. Okay.
What were you trying to do?
So, I'm trying to build a column called total.
Oh, I was wondering
Oh, just
what
up
you
here.
were writing about that was.
It strips out some more characters, like quotes, and make sure that all the words are just composed of letters. But clearly that's not working. That's fine. This is the fun of coding. Things break and you have no idea why. Okay, so let's just do account per user for the moment. So you can delete this. So it's just this. I think this will be fine. So if you look at frequency, the table that you just created, if you run just these lines, you'll see the username, the word, and the count that the number of times they used that word. So they were really having a fun time with the account Emily Baldwin. If we want to say plot the let's compare to two of these users specifically. So we're going to take the frequency data frame, we're going to select user key, word, and in, which I think it actually might already, it might just be that already. Yes, we don't have to do that. What select does is it actually tells the data frame which columns you want to use, and then it ignores the rest of the columns. So if you have, it's really useful for a giant data frame that if you have like, say 40 columns, 60 columns, then you can make a new one with just like 3 or 4 that you want to use. So select selects the user key column, the word column, and the in column from the frequency data frame. And then we're going to filter it so that user key is in these two screen names. So what this does is it makes it so that you only keep the data from Emily Baldwin and 10 GOP. Also, as an aside, 10 GOP is a fun account because it posed as a legitimate Tennessee affiliate, like Tennessee GOP affiliated account, and no one knew that it was run by the Russian government until like February of this year. Yeah.
What about, there's also another account called Tea Party News, and their top word is 10 GOP.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 10 GOP was one of the like hub accounts for running the disinformation campaign.
What does the C represent again?
C means combine, so essentially it builds a list of these two. And then let's run that. Yeah, saves that. We're good. So write one more line on this, which is spread user key in. And so what spread does is, if you've ever like pivoted a table in Excel, it's essentially that. It makes the first column in this case, the word, and then it pivots the names, Emily Baldwin and 10 GOP, up to be 2 different columns. So you get words in the first column, and then a column for each screen name, and then the number of times they use that word running down. So you can see that if you click on frequency.
I'm having some difficulties again. I still haven't gotten a frequency table. I'm not building anything right now.
Do you have this part of it?
So, I can inherit keys, unfortunately.
there a way to comment out lines?
Yes. Put a hash in front of it.
Just hash.
Yeah. Then you have to make sure you delete the pipe if it's the end of the line or something. So if you want to comment out the last line of this, you also have to make sure to delete this. The pipe.
Oh, because it'll
won't
type
run.
into the comment and it'll break.
It needs to be cut.
So if we want to graph this and compare the two users and how often they used their words, we can make a new graph. Do ggplot. Frequency is the table that we're using. We'll do an aesthetics line. So essentially what this is doing is x equals 10 GOP, y equals Emily Baldwin. So we're going to graph like the frequency, the number of times they used each word with 10 GOP on the x-axis, Emily Baldwin on the y-axis. We'll do plus. Oops. Or something called geom jitter, which sort of very, very slightly spreads out the points so that they don't overlap. Because we're going to have, thousands of words on here. It's going to be hard to view if you don't do this. So don't worry about what this stuff is doing right now. It just allows you, it just spreads out the data so it's easier to see. When you have that, do another plus. And then do geom text. AS label equal word. Check overlap equals true, which just checks to see if the points are overlapping each other or the labels are overlapping each other. And then vjust equals 1.5, which if they are overlapping, it'll move the labels a little bit to make them easier to see. We'll do one more line, hopefully. Geom AB line, color equals red. Please work.
And just check over.
It checks to see if the labels are overlapping each other, these words down here.
Oh, okay.
And if they are, then it adjusts them slightly so that they aren't overlapping. If you want to see a bigger view of this, you can click the zoom button to see it bigger. Lets you see more words. This would look better if that frequency bit was actually working. A frequency graph is better than a actual just gross numbers graph. But you can see it's kind of cool to see what they were using. I think it just froze it. That's fine.
So what is it removing?
What?
Is it just removing those that don't contain valid data?
Yeah, so
Saying it's
the words where one person used it and the other person doesn't, it removes this stuff.
Oh,
It only compares the words that both of them used at least once.
okay.
yeah. I thought it's the same
So you can see that Emily Baldwin was much more active, used the word Trump over 2,000 times, Clinton over 1,000 times. And if the frequency graph worked down here, you would see a bunch of the other terms that you would expect, like Black Lives Matter, Colin Kaepernick, the sort of wedge issues that the Russian disinformation campaign used to sow discord. Were you able to get it to work?
So the part above the teaching plot, the actual frequency table, is done in error messages.
Okay.
Just try to do that again.
Were you guys able to see the graph?
Mhm.
Cool. So I know that like working with text is really difficult. It is the most difficult data type to work with because it's so it's not precise and it's very all over the place. And computers don't work well with things like just generally don't work well with text. So this stuff takes a while to learn. It takes a lot of work, but it is really cool when you're able to see something like this and you're able to map out how accounts talk, the language that they use. It's really useful for linguistic studies, especially regarding propaganda campaigns. Like I was playing around with this data set last night and was able to map out, like I just took a guess at like the four most popular, I wanted to map out the four most popular or the four most active accounts in this data set. Two of them ended up being very, very right-wing and two of them ended up being very, very left-wing. And so you're able to see like the corresponding, the left-wing ones are talking a lot more about like Colin Kaepernick, Black Lives Matter. Right-wing ones are talking way more about the investigations, the like Director Comey, other things like that. It's really interesting to see how they capitalized on that. And it's a look at that sort of campaign and that sort of propaganda that you can't get otherwise, unless you're able to actually break down Twitter data into this, microscopic level. So I know this has been a lot. It's been a lot of information thrown at you guys at once, and it's like 1:10 now. So I'm gonna wrap it up there. There's a lot more to this though, and if you guys aren't interested from this taste, feel free to come into the Meta Lab whenever you want and hang out, and I'll show you more. Also, if you still haven't gotten it to work, I can help you out a little bit.
Keep getting error message with the frequency.
Yeah, I'll come take a look.
It's
Thanks for coming, guys.